morning. Winter storm Indigo has more than 90 million people waking up to winter weather alerts as snow cranks across the Ohio Valley to the northeast. And we can't forget the lake effect snow piling up on top of cities already hit hard by more than 2 feet of snow. We're all in it together. And early next week, a massive system is bringing heavy rain and producing a widespread ice threat from the southern to northern plains. Drivers beware, your travel plans may need adjustments as we enter this weekend. This is America's Morning Headquarters. I'm meteorologist Felicia Combs alongside meteorologists Lynette Charles and Jim Cantori. Jim, it feels like this is kind of like deja vu, but again, we have a lot to break down this morning between this system and the next system we're watching.
I love how you just...
So cold. That Arctic air is just going to be diving south. It's going to kind of follow this path. It's almost like a little road map when you look at the wind chill warnings as that Arctic air dives southward and makes it all the way into the south, all the way down to the Gulf Coast where we have those wind chill warnings because it is going to be dangerously cold. So the temperatures that you're seeing right now in Pierre, -1, Omaha, -1 as well. These are the actual temperatures, not the wind chills. 2 degrees in Kansas City, 30 in Nashville. Meanwhile, Atlanta, Tallahassee, New Orleans, you're feeling pretty mild, but that is not going to last. Big changes are coming. These wind chills that you're seeing around Omaha, Pierre, Minneapolis, that wind and that cold is south. Nashville feeling like 24, but that is going to feel, I'm going to say warm compared to what it feels like tomorrow. Our forecast highs today only in the single digits across the northern tier, 24 in Indianapolis. Kansas City, for instance, you should be warming into the upper 30s this time of year. So the fact that you're only making it to 9 degrees, that's way below average for you. Here's what's happening, that jet stream dip, it is lingering around and allowing that cold to just ooze its way south, that cold, dense Arctic air. This is the type of air that you're waking up in, and not only is it cold and your heat is running, but you're like, man, the air is so dry, my lips are chapped, I need lotion. And that's the least of your worries, because as you wake up tomorrow morning and say Kansas City -10, Nashville 9 degrees. So take that temperature that you have this morning and hold on to it. Little Rock, Atlanta in the teens, and that's just part of the story. The bigger part of the story here, those wind chills, because this is going to be a windy system. So Buffalo feeling like -2. Nashville, you see it, feels like -2. Single digits in Little Rock is what it feels like. Even Dallas feels like 11 degrees. You know, it's reminiscent temperatures in Texas of a couple years ago. I was stuck in Houston for that big freeze.
Oh, I was in Dallas. I know exactly the one you're talking about.
I'll never forget it. So fingers crossed that the South will fare better than our last super cold outbreak.
Yeah, and I think they will because we're retreating cold, right?
Yeah.
As the precipitation moves in, we'll retreat that cold. But
that is hilarious. That was literally just my guess. I won't say I wasn't listening to Lynette read, but I did not hear the dog's name was Bob. Okay, so let's talk about this because we've been talking about how your Friday morning travel will definitely be impacted by Winter Storm Indigo, and we're already seeing that. Reagan National DCA here, we've got a ground stop, and that will be going on for a little while longer there. Seeing a lot of other green bubbles, but I would expect that we're seeing some other delays as well. Here in D.C., as mentioned, this is DCA, this is Reagan National. I'm sure IAD is experiencing maybe some delays too, but we've got a ground stop until 7:15. You've got visibility down to a mile, so obviously that is not great for flying. Expected airport impacts throughout the day today. You see it here all across the Northeast. We are expecting those impacts to mount up as we've got heavy snow, gusty winds moving through. Look at this heavy snow moving here through the Ohio River Valley, Louisville. Guys are getting some of that heavy snow, that wind as well. So it's reducing your visibility. Right now we've got the snow around Cleveland. You guys are far from done. This is going to end up being a big lake effect snowmaker before all is said and done, up and down that 90 corridor off of Lake Erie. Lake effect snow heavy at times. Of course, that means blinding at times. You want to make sure you're using caution on the roadways, especially as we're expecting over a foot in some places there from that lake effect adding up. This is where we're going to see those higher totals. It's the elevation and the lake effect snow from Indigo that's really going to add those totals up, Jim.
This is a big event for Cleveland.
Yeah.
I mean, in the whole line on Jordan from Buffalo down to Cleveland.
There you go. You're really making fetch happen. I just want you to know. You're barely even trying, and you're making fetch happen. Double fetch, even.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about it, because Jim kind of just touched on it, but we've got to time this out for you. I will tell you, I was looking at some of the observations. I was like, oh, snow for New York. You guys just getting clouds right now, though. Your dew point sitting at 12 degrees. So before we're actually seeing a lot of this snow make it all the way to the ground, probably have to saturate that air just a little bit more, but eventually you'll see those flakes flying in NYC. It will be filling in. You can see heading through our lunch hour, Patterson, Yonkers, you're getting in a bit more of that snow. And you're going to notice your winds picking up as well. So that's going to be another thing coming along with this kind of second wind of this system. But by the nighttime hours, you're going to start to see it breaking down a bit. Not a huge snowmaker out of this 1-2 inches, but it's going to be around for most of your day for your afternoon commute. So do keep that in mind. Heading out to Philly, where that snow is going to start coming down heavy in some spots. Certainly want to give yourself a little bit of extra time as you're heading out, as these roads, especially the untreated ones, are going to be kind of collecting some of that snow heading through your late morning, into your lunch hour, into your afternoon. You're done with work today. You're getting off. Now that snow will begin tapering off, but it's still going to be around that 5-6 o'clock hour. So keep that in mind as you're heading out. Snow total forecast around Philly up through Reading, 2-3 inches, maybe a little bit more as you look south of that 295 corridor, getting up to 4, maybe inching toward 5 if you're lucky, depending on how some of these snow bands set up. You'll notice Cleveland, we've got the wind right now not directing that snow across the lake and directly into Cleveland, but as we've talked about, this is going to be a big snowmaker. So you'll see that change eventually happen, and that is going to help that snow to add up as we head through the overnight into the weekend. So this could be a really kind of just stopping type of thing for I-90, Lynette. All right, you know what, I didn't realize. I didn't realize I was about to do a weather hit, so I don't have my clicker.
Well, obviously I didn't either.
I thought I was doing a tease. So Jillian, I have Friday brain. If you could click for me, that would be greatly appreciated. I was in a whole different block. I was in the E block. So good morning, everyone. Are you awake? Because I'm awake now. Let's talk wind chill, because right now it feels like -20 in Omaha. It feels really free to have 2 free hands.
Which one do you want, the coffee or the clicker?
I'll take both. No,
yeah, okay.
no, I don't have 2 free hands anymore, but it's fine. Thank you, Jim. It feels like -6 in Chicago. 24 is what it feels like in Nashville. But if you think this is bad, especially across portions of the South, just wait until we get to tomorrow. Our highs today going to be in the single digits from Bismarck down through Omaha, Minneapolis, same thing. Little Rock 34 for you, Columbus 25. It's this cold Arctic air that's really going to be, you know, it's one thing when it snows and that's problematic, and especially when you're talking about the heavy snow that we'll see along the Great Lakes. But when you're talking about this type of Arctic cold diving all the way south down to the Gulf of Mexico, you are really having a lot of people impacted by the type of cold that they're not used to. Maybe they don't know how to dress and bundle up. I'll tell you, in Atlanta, Jackson, layers, 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 especially when it's a wind chill factor, because the more layers you can have to keep you from having that warm layer removed from you from being blown away, the better you're going to be. So the forecast in Sioux City, Iowa, -21. That's not the wind chill, guys. That is the actual temperature. That would just absolutely smash the old record of -19 set back in 1970. Look at all of this. Hastings, -15, smashing the old record. Grand Island, -16. We're going to see really old records possibly broken. So this is going to be a historic cold snap for some of these cities. Wind chill alerts from the international border all the way down through Kansas City, St. Louis, Springfield, and this wind chill alert stretches all the way down into the south as well. Omaha, look at this, feeling like below 0 for the entire day on Saturday. That's not the type of weekend you want to be outside in, Jim.
But you mean it's going to warm up tomorrow?
Until April. No, just kidding. That's not going to work. Going to work, but if I could, I would. Let's talk about where you might be wanting to stay inside as well. Take a look at our wind chill alerts from the international border all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Wind chill warnings, wind chill advisories up. And I always like to say this, like the National Weather Service, they don't just like issue these things because they don't have anything else to do. There's certain criteria. They want to keep you safe. So when you see that you're under one of these advisories or warnings, you want to take heed to that because it's important. It's going to impact your life. It's going to impact how you dress if you do have to go outside. Temperatures right now, 1 degree in Kansas City. Kansas City, you were down at 9 degrees yesterday morning, so that was already cold, but even colder this morning. 20 in Indianapolis, 30 in Nashville. But you'll notice not too bad in Tallahassee, not too bad this morning in Atlanta or even Asheville, but that's going to be changing. This Arctic cold that you see here, this wind that's making it feel like -24 in Pierre, making it feel like -17 in Kansas City. All of that is diving southward, and that is why we have those wind chill alerts stretching all the way down to the Gulf Coast. So for today, our highs Little Rock 33. Kansas City, just to put this in perspective for you, you should be in the upper 30s. Instead, your high is going to be at 9 degrees. So we're really seeing well below average temperatures. Our jet stream dip is lingering around long enough to allow that cold air to really seep south. And that is why we are going to be seeing these temperatures, these very, very cold temperatures, stretching all the way down into cities like New Orleans and Tallahassee, even Tampa. 45 tomorrow morning, Houston 29, Nashville, Indianapolis, Chicago, all in the single digits, but it's better than the negatives, right? It's going to be negative 17 in Omaha tomorrow, negative 3 in Minneapolis. That's the actual temperature. What it's going to feel like feels like negative 2 in Nashville and Asheville, Atlanta. You're going to feel like 6 degrees for your Saturday morning. OKC, you getting up for your morning run? Are you running in that? If you're in Oklahoma City and you're an outside runner, are you running in that? That's what I need to know, because it's going to feel like 0 degrees. Arctic cold Saturday. We're going to get really close to some records. You can see Asheville, the forecast is 20 degrees. The old record is going to be 24, so we're going to crush that. Knoxville, 20. I'm like, Jim is on the phone. I don't know if I'm supposed to be tossing to him or. Are you going to tell me?
No, yeah. Thanks, Tony. Tony wants you to go to Cleveland this weekend to cover the Lake effect.
You know what? I'm sorry. I just found out that I'm going to be locked inside my condo.
See that?
All weekend. I just found out my locks don't work anymore.
I'm just the messenger. All right.
Freezing fog and snow and visibility down to around, I just checked the latest observation. It said it's down to around a half mile. So I think that visibility might be actually overdoing it a little bit. So that ground stop until 8:15 actually. So I was like, okay, well, what's going on with IAD? IAD there at Dulles, you have about 2.5 miles of visibility. So visibility a little bit better there, and you're also not dealing with the freezing fog. So DCA is where we're seeing some of those issues. LGA as well, LaGuardia, we've got that ground delay program going into effect. Delays around 3 hours, guys. Pack your patience. It's a Friday morning. Maybe you're getting ready to head off on a vacation and fly away from all this wintry mess, and you're like, no, I need to get out. But just be aware that the weather is going to be impacting you, as we've seen over the past couple weeks. It could be slowing down your travels just a bit. Give yourself some extra time, and just make sure you know. I mean, I feel like, Jim, if you're flying out of any of these airports, be ready for some delays.
Yeah, that cold everywhere after this.
I could stand there and watch that lake effect snow coming down Lake Michigan.
Isn't that neat?
That is just so cool. It's like, this
and
is
then
why.
think about this. When you were born, the computer models never picked that up.
I mean,
now they pick it up.
I mean,
like
20
that.
years ago wasn't that long.
Like I said, when you were born,
when I was born,
that's how
20
far
years
we've come,
ago.
love.
In just 20 years. Imagine where we're going to be 20 years from now when I'm still 25.
I thought you were 18. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
All right, let's talk about it, because maybe you're looking at the radar. Maybe you are a weather enthusiast yourself, and you're looking at the radar in New York, and you're like, snow. And then you peek out the window, and you're like, wait, this snow isn't quite reaching the ground just yet. We've got to saturate that air just a little bit more. But south, as you look south, you're getting some of that snow. And that is why we've got that ground delay program going into effect there at LaGuardia. The delays expected around 3 hours. You can see the red here. So they are kind of preemptively planning for what they're going to be dealing with as the snow fills in. Throughout the morning, that snow is going to continue to pick up. Heavy snow at times. Patterson, Yonkers getting in on this. And guys, once you finally get that air saturated and you get the snow start falling, it's going to be hours of it falling, but it will clear out by the nighttime into the evening. Even with that, though, it's not the total snow that's making the big difference with this system, because you'll notice we're not looking at any huge totals. It's the impact that it's having on your morning commute and those flights, as we're seeing. Philly, though, it is really coming down in Philly, and that's going to be what you're dealing with as you're heading out this morning. You know what I have really loved to see? Jordan Steele out there we warm up to -9. That's a problem.
I'm not working with you again.
That's a problem. All right. Well, it's not just cold there. It's cold along the Great Lakes, and it's also snowing. Some spots could top another foot of snow. Meteorologist Jordan Steele is live in Orchard Park, New York. Jordan, it's January. It's Buffalo, but this is a lot of snow in a city about to host a lot of football fans.
It's been a lot for the city. We've had schools closed.
Winter Storm Indigo has more than 90 million people waking up to winter weather alerts as snow cranks across the Ohio Valley to the northeast. And we can't forget the lake effect snow piling on top of cities already hit hard by more than 2 feet of snow. And then early next week, a massive system is bringing heavy rain and producing a widespread ice threat from the southern to the northern plains. Drivers, beware. Your travel plans may need adjustments as we enter the weekend. That is not what you like to see. But we love to see this. This is America's Morning Headquarters. I'm meteorologist Felicia Combs, alongside meteorologists Lynette Charles and Jim Cantori. Jim, we got so much to break down this morning. It's like every single hour we've got new stuff to talk about, new delays, new weather happening, more lake effect snow coming into effect this morning, especially compared to yesterday. You're probably like, oh, this isn't so bad. The problem is, or at least yesterday morning, the problem is those temperatures are going to be falling. So the wind chill that we're looking at right now, -20 in Omaha, Kansas City, -17. Of course, we know that's what it feels like. So not your actual temperature, but nonetheless, you don't want to be out in that. OKC, -8 is what it feels like. Now, our forecast highs for today are significantly below average. Record cold for some places. Kansas City, for instance, you should be in the upper 30s. Instead, you're sitting around 9 degrees. So that is, what, about 30 degrees below average. We'll start to see even colder air surging southward. So here's that Arctic air, cold, dry, plunges southward from the international border, making its way all the way down into the Gulf Coast, getting Florida in on that, places like New Orleans as well. So by tomorrow morning when we're waking up in Little Rock, it's 15 degrees, Nashville in the single digits, Atlanta 18 degrees. Meanwhile, Chicago too, but you see all these negatives here. -14 in Pierre is what you're waking up to tomorrow morning, and then it's going to feel even colder, feeling like -30 in Omaha once you factor in that wind. Nashville, I hope this wasn't your weekend to go to Nashville and like enjoy and be outside, because it's going to be -2, or that's what it's going to feel like as you're waking up Saturday morning. Same thing for Asheville, feeling like 24 in Tallahassee as you're waking up Saturday morning. Take a look at some of these forecasts. Our coldest maximum temperatures. So what that means is Birmingham, your forecast high, that's your high temperature on Saturday, is 30 degrees. That would break the old record of 28 set back in 1978. You know, Jim, when you start talking about it's not any fun anywhere. I mean, Asheville, forecast 21, old record 24, smashing record.
However, if you were in Asheville and you got to spend the weekend at the Grove Park Inn, I think all ails you would go away.
I've been in Asheville, and I've spent time in Asheville for snow, and I will say it's some of the best bread I've ever had in one of the restaurants there.
There you go. See, there's hope for her to get out.
Friday, another Friday morning travel being impacted by another winter storm. Guys, it feels almost like deja vu, right? The good news is we're moving in the right direction at DCA at Reagan National. You can see we finally got a green bubble. That ground stop has been lifted. However, they are de-icing, so that could cause a few delays, but definitely looking better than it was. That's the silver lining in our flight travel. Here's the what's the opposite of the silver lining? The storm cloud, I guess. I don't know. In New York right now, LaGuardia, you've got that ground delay program in effect. So 2 hours maybe for those delays. What's happening is it's if your flight is coming into New York. So maybe that's your layover. Maybe you're flying to New York. Your plane could be held wherever you are until they think they can accept those planes at a good rate. So we are seeing those delays there. Of course, with a major hub like LaGuardia, you're going to see those delays stacking. So I don't know, maybe you're waiting to fly in. Maybe that's your layover. Airport impacts today. We're expecting that all across the Northeast because the snow is going to just keep coming. Heavy snow right now across portions of Kentucky, southern Ohio, Cincinnati. You guys are in it. Heavy snow moving through. Pittsburgh, it's been a snowy morning for you as well. Cleveland had a little bit of light snow, but we're starting to see some of that heavier snow build in. And lake effect snow is what we're expecting, Jim. Winter storm Indigo. This is where it's going to leave a big mark. We're talking about over a foot along portions of that 90 corridor because of what was that you were calling the double fetch?
The double fetch, yeah, off Lake Huron and Lake Erie. You love that word fetch this morning.
Oh, man. No one can make fetch happen the way Jim Cantori can. He knows what we're talking about now before you had no idea.
I just found out what they were talking about.
It's Friday, it's January, and you know what that means. We're throwing another winter storm at you, or at least that has been kind of the cadence of the past couple weeks, right? So maybe you were planning some tropical vacation to get out of some of this winter weather. Well, you could be dealing with some delays, and the roads could be quite a mess as you're heading out. Look at this snow moving through the Ohio River Valley, eastern Kentucky, into West Virginia, up through Pittsburgh. That snow is coming down at a good clip. The winds are blowing as well. Right now from Baltimore to D.C. Now, it's looking a little bit better than it was earlier around D.C. But what's going to happen is all of this is going to fill back in. Baltimore, you're stuck in that snow up through Hagerstown. You've got that as well. That I-81 corridor and through the mountains, going to be a little slick. Give yourself some extra time. Maybe avoid it if you can. Heavy snow at times today, slick roads across this region. And what you know is, of course, this part of the country, very mountainous. And as you head up in elevation, that's where we're going to see some of the heavier snow totals coming down as well. So keep that in mind. The 95 corridor, New York, Philly, D.C., we are dealing with that wintry weather coming down. We already had a ground stop at DCA earlier for visibility for that snow. Hazardous conditions certainly are the story for today. Philly, reduced visibility, heavy snow at times. So if you're flying out of Philly, that could get you, and also slippery roads, of course. And then we've already had that ground delay program going on there in NYC at LaGuardia. So we're already seeing these impacts of Winter Storm Indigo, Jim, in terms of travel on our Friday.
Yeah, and that snow's going to...
Snow can hamper your travel, right? And cold rain is never any fun. But you know what is like kind of the worst, the top level winter weather that's the worst? Ice. And we're looking at an ice threat as we head through the latter part of this weekend into early next week. You can see it highlighted here on the cusp for places like, say, Dallas, Wichita Falls, though, OKC, Tulsa, Fort Smith, up into the Ozarks. Looking like a chance for some icy conditions. This is the current forecast. Of course, we're still a couple days out, so this has time to evolve. But right now we're looking at maybe some of the higher totals, maybe a half inch, 3/4 of an inch, where you're seeing some of that darker shading. So up through the Ozarks, south of that 44 corridor, maybe around Fort Smith, but even just a 1/10 of an inch or a 1/4 of an inch causes issues when you're talking about ice, especially when you're talking about that Monday morning commute, which will be the timing for some of this. That can create just absolutely treacherous travel conditions. So I just showed you some of the numbers there. When you're talking about up to a 1/4, you're talking about hazardous travel, maybe spotty power outages. Getting up to a 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch of ice, you're looking at tree damage and that possibility for power outages as well. As we've seen, that ice can encase those trees. It weighs it down. They fall on power lines, and then we're without power. So here's overnight Sunday into Monday. You've got that freezing rain possible. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, where you're looking at those temperatures in OKC where it's 33. So maybe your actual roads are okay, but those bridges and overpasses are freezing. Fayetteville, you can see those temperatures warm quickly. This is kind of our main saving grace here, is that we're influxing warmth with this. So we warm up pretty quickly after the morning. We just have to be careful with that cold start and that morning commute. Lots of rain in the forecast for the south as well. That's something we'll be watching. Some of these areas, though, do need the rain. Guys.
All right, we're kicking